All right guys, welcome back to the Frugal Homestead. So today we're going to do something that's a little early for it, but because this garden didn't produce, we're going to amend and winterize it and just close it down for the season and let everything we're going to do to it soak down in throughout the rest of fall, let it compost all through winter, and next spring start fresh rather than trying to plant more winter crops and force it to go. So Missy's been in here working all day getting it prepped for what we're about to do. I was over working on the wood burner building, getting it prepped for the next step, which you'll see that too. But basically she's got it all prepped out for what we're about to do. So let me get the camera turned around and we'll show you what we're gonna do. All right, as you can see, we got blackberries down there. Missy will tell you more about what we're gonna do with that and how that worked, but they grew awesome this year. This middle section here, usually we have string if it's tomatoes, or we have fence panels we zip tie on the T-posts for beans. This year was tomatoes and this thing did terrible, honestly. So when we amend this, we're just really going to amend this middle section here because the rest is supposed to be basically walkways to make it comfortable for us as we get older. So most of our work's going to be focused here. Now back here you can see all the chips, and there's piles way back there if we need more, which we will. But as far as amending it, what we're going to be working with is ashes out of the wood burner. Now this bucket will be all we use for this entire garden, and we will do everything in the garden, even the walkways. Now this is not an every year thing. We don't always have to do this every year, but this one suffering just needs some extra attention. Now this is an all-natural fertilizer we use. Now generally speaking, if we have a decent year, we might throw some rabbit or some cow poop in and then just cover it up. But since this one was doing so bad, I keep this all-natural fertilizer, which it's kind of a contradiction because there is no such thing as an all-natural fertilizer, because like this has bone and blood meal in it, but that's got to be cooked, so that's a chemical process, you know what I mean? So this is about as close as I can come to a happy medium between what we call natural and chemical. This will allow all the growth under the chips. You know, it won't mess with the biology of the life under there. It won't kill it the way real chemical fertilizers do. But it's not something I want to use every year. It's a 4-6-2 blend. It works for pretty much anything on the property and won't burn anything. So we will be spreading a light coat of this down just the center section here to give it a little extra oomph for next year. And then when we go to plant our plants, which will be bean crop next year, I'll top dress it with some worm castings and maybe a little fish fertilizer depending upon how our season's going. So let us get you on the tripod and you can see what we're about to do and how we set this up. Now you'll notice right off there's a bunch of greenery on the ground. We did that on purpose because when we throw the chips down, it'll start the composting process. We want those chips to start composting and get hot. There's no more growing in here this season, so it ain't gonna hurt anything for this whole bed, this whole garden to start composting, including the walkways. So let's get you set up. We'll show you how we do this. First, we're gonna spread the ashes. When it comes to ashes, less is more. You don't want to have big clumps of ashes. You want them spread out as thin as possible, and you still want to be able to see through them down to the ground. That way it doesn't make a crust and block your ground from getting moisture. Once again, this is a 462. When you see it, you'll know right away that it's basically mostly pulverized plant particles, rock dust, like the mineral rock dust, as well as some bone and blood meal and a few other things. It's important to note that if I went by the application rate on the bag, it'd use like half to 3/4 of that bag in just this garden. We don't use near that much. Like I said, this is only for the years the garden does bad, or if we got trees that seem like they're run down, we'll put some of this in. 90% of the time, the wood chips themselves, or if we put in like some kind of animal waste, like a rabbit poop or something in it, and let it winterize, they do fine. But as we've turned the soil here, as far as changing it, it went from hard clay mass to kind of its own nutrient like base under there, and it doesn't need messed with that much. This just gives it a boost, and I use it in very small amounts compared to what the bag says. Besides, the cost effectiveness of using the natural stuff in large amounts, you couldn't afford to keep going. So as you saw, we just dusted it. Now we're gonna start laying our chips down. As we lay them down, we do it about 2-3 inches where possible. It's just kind of a guess. You don't have to be perfect. You just wanna always make sure your dirt is always covered. That way it holds the moisture in. And then by having the greenery under it, it'll start that composting, it'll have that moisture, and it'll start to heat up them chips from the underside, but they're not deep enough to where it's gonna hold it in and, you know, shut it down. So it will essentially compost all winter, and the worms will come in from the bottom side and start chewing it up. And next year, when we come out here, the chips we're putting on now and maybe a little bit of a compost layer will be under it, and everything else will be gone. twigs, sticks, chips, leaves, even a bunch of pine in some of it, pine needles. It's just a nice blended mix that comes in from the guys out of the tree service. They bring them to us. Usually it's sat and baked in the truck for about a week or two. They dump it, we leave it for a few weeks, and then we just apply it. Nothing special, nothing fancy, but it does the job. Sounds like the chipper. All right, guys, as you can see, that didn't take nothing. If you want to start one of these gardens, say you're starting from nothing, if you can get guys to bring out a truck and just dump you a pile, pull the pile over the square you want to become a garden and leave it till next year, it's a nice way to start it. We got to fill up our containers with some more chips, bring them in, and finish doing the area. As you can see, the main run's done. So let us get it all filled up. We'll get it all filled in here. We'll bring you back, and then Missy will take you over by the berries and show you what we're doing for now and explain what we'll do later.
Okay guys, so these are all my berry bushes back here. Well, I shouldn't say all of them. It's part of them. My Aunt Carolyn and Uncle Gary gave me a couple catata berry bushes, which is a crossbreed of the blackberry bush, and it gets big berries just like the regular blackberry bushes does, and they're thornless. But she only gave me 2 plants. We planted them here, I want to say summer before last, and these things went crazy. So they're trying to take over the garden. Today I'm just going to trim them back some. I'm not going to winterize them. I'm just going to trim them back some so that they get out of our way a little bit. But this plant is one that shot off. There's another plant back there, like 3 more plants that's already shot off. Very happy. They love this place. So they're doing great. We got berries off of them for the first time this year. So I think they are 2 summers old. But show you how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to cut them back some just to keep them under control. You shouldn't have your stalks more than like 4 foot long. And I've kind of let these get crazy. Some of these have to be 8 to 10 feet long. So I'll show you how far I'm going to cut them back for now. Alright, so I just hacked these off because the garden's nice and cleaned up, ready to go now. So they'll be able to store more energy before winter to their roots. We'll come back later on in the season and we'll actually winterize them for the winter. But this should give them plenty enough sunlight to be able to restore themselves before winter hits and to get plenty of energy stored. So thanks for joining us at the Frugal Homestead, and we'll see you in the next one.